Hey, it's Jake. I just wanted to give you a quick announcement here before we start this episode of the podcast. I just wanted to let you know about my new Kickstarter for a book called Writer's Intergalactic Guide to Robots. It's part comic, it's part art book, it's all robots, and it's a companion book to my last book that I did last year, the spaceships book. So if you got that book, if you've seen that book, you know what you're in for when you get this book. I made the tiers, the reward levels super simple. There's a no frills, just the book only option. So you just back it at that level and you get a book shipped right out to you. But for people who want to make it a little bit more fancy, they're going to want to get it signed and have a book plate to it. I've got a level just above that. Comes with these 3 bookmarks where if you put them together, it kind of makes a scene where they all work together. Other levels, we've got stickers. I know you've got a couple of you have an open space on your water bottles still, and so there's a perfect spot for one of these stickers. But the sticker pack comes with 4 stickers. You can slap a robot sticker on your car if you want to. You can put it on your laptop, stuff like that. We've got a pin, a little robot lapel pin. Lapel pin. Who has lapels anymore? It's for your bag. It's for your jean jacket. You could stick it on a cork board like I do. I got a little pin collection on my cork board. Anyways, if you want to get this book, it's available now on the Kickstarter. Check out the link in our show notes here. And I'd love it if you supported me on this project. You know, I'm an indie artist. A lot of my income comes from doing these indie projects like this. I love doing these kinds of things. I try to make the absolute best books that I can do, and I think people really end up liking them. So if you want to support that kind of work, you want to support human-made projects, then come on over to the Robots book Kickstarter and back it. All right, thank you everybody. Now on to the show. Hello everybody, and welcome to 3 Point Perspective, the podcast about illustration, how to do it, how to make a living at it, and how to make an impact in the world with your art. I'm Jake Parker.
I'm Lee White.
And I'm Will Terry. All three of us are professional illustrators. We've all worked with all the major publishers in the business. Together, we've published somewhere around 75 children's books, and we've all taught illustration at university art schools.
That is correct. Each week, we interview fantastic illustrators or answer listener questions such as yours. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we argue, but each time you learn something brand spanking new.
Brand spanking new. Before we get into questions today, I just want to point out that my Kickstarter just launched.
Oh. Dude.
Yeah.
Why
And
did you not text me and Will?
Well,
it
because
it
hasn't, but it will launch the day this airs.
Oh.
See, I'm on to you, Jake. I know.
I was getting ready to get very angry.
Yeah.
Don't worry. I will be texting you guys. But if you're listening
right
to this
now, as of right now,
go back this
launched.
thing. Go back this thing. This is Writer's Intergalactic Guide to Robots, Power Suits and Mechs. It's a follow-up to my spaceships book. You can get, if you miss the first Kickstarter, you can get the spaceships book and the robots book, a 2-book thing going on there. So do check it out. You just go hit that link in our show notes, and it's off to a great start. I can tell you that right now.
That is amazing. It's probably already funded. Let me plug something else in case you are interested in making your own project. We are building a program right now called Self-Publishing Pro because Jake, Will, and I have all just had a conversation right before we started recording that we are kind of done with the publishing industry. They're too limiting, and everybody's got an idea, and you want to be able to get that idea out. And we're going to show you how to do it, just like Jake's doing with this project, or I'm doing with my project, and Will obviously has his projects that he won't shut up about. So
I want to clarify.
We're going to teach you how to do it.
I'm not done with publishing. I'm still. I think some of the problems that we've been talking about in one area of the publishing hasn't really leached into other areas of publishing, and which specifically is like comic books and graphic novels, is still like, I think, a place where you can, I mean, not that it's any easier to get work there, but you can tell the type of stories that are really just about like, let's take someone on an adventure instead of a therapy session for adults.
Right,
you know,
right. I mean, we were just talking about how inconsistent the publishing industry. I mean, I do love publishing. I don't want to say we're totally out of it, but I just submitted a book and it's the book that I want to make. And we sent it to different editors and stuff, and some of them said, oh, it's too edgy, it's too scary, and then the next person would say, oh, it's too commercial. And it was just so inconsistent, the results, that and then what do you do after you get a series of maybes and then they end up being no's? Do you just put it away, or do you believe in it enough to make it yourself, like Jake's doing with his, or like I'm considering doing with this book? Because it's a good book. And a lot of times when publishers have said, or gatekeepers, not just publishers, but sort of gatekeepers have said, this isn't viable, I do it on my own anyway, and then I make a bunch of money at it. People like it. So I don't know.
I think the one thing, so like for me, Kickstarter is a place for me to really do something that I know I couldn't convince a publisher to like get on board with. So like my Spaceships book, it's not an entire comic, it's not an entire art book, and it's not entirely like a visual dictionary. It's a combination of those things.
And they like things that fit into a specific category.
Exactly. And I'm like, let's try this. And I know it's for a niche market who, there's people who are like me who would love a book like that, but there may not be a million people like me who would love a book like that. And so it's a chance for me to like really be creative and try something new. And then, and almost like a proof of concept. Then I could take it to a publisher and be like, hey, there is interest in something like this. And the thing that publishing has that self-publishing doesn't have, and why I'm still interested in it, is distribution. Like, you can do distribution through self-publishing for sure, but they just have so much more inroads in all of the resources and the advertising and the booksellers and everything lined up, that for them to do, a 6,000 book print run is no big deal. A 15,000 or 30,000 print run is more, is definitely like something within their ability to deliver on. And, I have a book that I did with a publisher it's sold over 100,000 copies. Right. And so I like the idea of my books being in that many hands, in front of that many people. And I'd like to leverage that to bring people over to what I'm doing in self-publishing as well. So almost like using publishing as one, like half like credibility, saying it like, here's somebody who the gatekeepers are willing to promote, but then also leveraging all of those eyeballs to bring them to what I'm doing as a self-publisher as well. So that's kind of like my plan
kind
moving
of a
forward.
Circular kind of model.
Yeah, exactly.
Feeds the other. Yeah, I like that.
Which when I look at my career, 20 years of doing comic books, children's books, self-publishing stuff, I'll have to actually sit down and do the numbers, but I think I've made more money self-publishing than I have through traditional publishing. If not, they're like even. So, but then with traditional publishing, I've sold, over 200,000 books combined, and traditional publishing or self-publishing, I've sold maybe 20,000 books combined. So anyway, let's we've got some questions from patrons. Should we get right down into it?
Let's do it.
Okay. This one comes from Hadis. Hi, Jake, Will, and Lee. I absolutely love your podcast, and it has pulled me out of a creative slump many times, so thank you. My question: how would you best recommend creating connections with other artists and publishers in the book and illustration and comic field if you live far from the cultural centers of these industries? Would my best bet be going to conferences? Thank you. Just shooting from the hip here. Looking at this is you definitely want to be where they're going to be. So get out to conferences. That's why they go to conferences, because a lot of times these people, they'll have like a group of 5 or 10 people that they maybe see regularly, that they meet for lunch, or they share, an apartment complex with, or something like that. Like these people have tight-knit networks, but then the reason they go to conferences is they want to see all the other people that they don't get a chance to see, on a weekly or a monthly basis. And that's a perfect time for you to like show up at one of these things. And start making friends, start making relationships with them. Outside of those types of situations, just being present in their comments if they are active on social media, being present in their DMs every once in a while, like if they're active and if they're posting and they're open to it, just being a presence on there can go a long way too. Don't be over don't like overdo it. Don't be annoying, but a good comment here, a thoughtful comment here and there when they post something can go a long way. Do you guys have any thoughts about that as well?
Wait, you're telling me not to be annoying?
It's hard.
I don't
it's
know.
hard for Lee, but dial it back a little bit, and you might make some inroads.
Oh, go ahead, Will.
I feel like it's almost the wrong approach to try to get their attention. I feel like trying to go, hey, just want to let you know I'm available, because they know that there are tens of thousands of artists. They already know who they are that are available, so they kind of like almost like they're almost so overloaded with people trying to get their attention that they resist that. To me, the best way to get their attention is to do great work, to get great work out there on your social media accounts. And it sounds so pedestrian, so so obvious, but I mean there are a lot of people who do great work, are constantly posting it, constantly putting it out there, and their work speaks for them. And the editors and art directors at these places, they feel like they're the one to discover this amazing person at that point. It's not like you going, hey, not to say that you shouldn't also do that, but like I almost feel like you're better off just kind of letting it happen by doing great work. And if no one contacts you, it could be a sign that you're not doing great work,
Well, but what if somebody lives in a totally rural area? I don't agree with that, but I do think.
Well, I'm going to give you Piper Thibodeau. She lives in the very top of Canada, in a tiny town, and she got asked to illustrate for Sesame Street, for Random House.
I mean, I agree that as a whole, that good work is the common denominator.
She did that
success.
painting a day. She did the painting a day thing.
Right.
She's just constantly. She committed to it. She's like, I'm going to do a painting a day and post it on all my socials.
But
didn't know anybody. They all came after her.
Say, to get popular on YouTube, look at Mr. Beast. I mean, he did it. So it's like, I mean, is she the 1% that does that? So, I mean, I think it's a combination of things. Like, I agree that, going to conferences, going to events, local Illustrator events. When I say local, I mean, if you live out in, a rural area, whatever the closest bigger town to you is, it's going to be beneficial to go there. But also what Will's saying, I think making good work, but also making projects, because no editor at one of these events or art director or whoever wants to see a portfolio of just images saying, hey, do you want to hire me? Because I hope you got a project for me. But if you build your own projects, that's what they'll get excited about. They may not hire you for that project specifically, but it's really helpful if you go to an SVWI event, for example, and saying, hey, I got this dummy. Here's a story that I'm working on. And they can sort of start to see how you think versus here's my portfolio. I hope you hire me. I mean, it's just that never works, especially now. I mean, that's just gone away. The hired illustrator, unless you're already really well known, just doesn't happen. I think it's project based. And so kind of a combo of those two things.
Yeah. So be making good work, and then hit people up at the conferences, and then do your best on social media to not annoy, but to, I guess, make friends. And that's the way to look at it, is not networking, but making friendships. That's the way I've always looked at it. Like, if I work with somebody, I find out if they have kids, find out if they're in a relationship, ask how their kids are doing,
And
and
then show them a photo of their kids.
show them a photo
No,
of the
don't-
kids that you
don't do
took
that.
while they were at
You're
the park, and while you're hiding through the bush. It's a great
Hey.
way to get their attention.
if you have to try not to be annoying, just by proxy, doesn't that mean you're probably annoying?
Probably, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't try working on it.
Right.
No, but I mean, family's one thing, hobbies is another thing. So there's like levels, right? So what do you do for work is one level. What are your relationships is another level. What do you do for fun? What are your hobbies is another level. And then what sort of drives you to do all these things? Like, what are your core values? What are your beliefs? Those types of things. And those are like the layers of building a friendship. And the deeper you go, usually the better a friend you are, the better relationship you have with them. So start on the surface level and then move your way down as that person is comfortable sharing that stuff with you.
Mm-hmm.
Next question. This comes from Kozirin. Hi, you all have possibly answered this before, but I'll ask anyways. Due to the nature of your podcast and what you educate, I was wondering if you guys would be absolutely upfront about feeling like there generally was no future for illustrators, and if you felt that way. Even before AI becoming more of a thing, I took what our educators said with some grain of salt, since it's in their interest for others to believe a career in art was possible. Just curious of your genuine thoughts. Thank you. Is there a future in art for illustrators? What do you guys think?
No.
What does that mean?
Like,
is there a future for art for illustrators? I'm confused.
Well, what I hear her saying is like, she's like, if you're an educator, you have a vested interest to say, yeah, everybody, there's a future in art. And she's saying, tell us the truth. If you secretly actually really believe there isn't, let us know.
Right.
What do you right?
Right. Like, and I think it's more specifically future. I think they're saying, can a person have a career as an illustrator in the year 2024?
Before we answer this, before we answer this, there were some really negative things that I was talking to one of my former teachers in art school, who I ended up teaching alongside with later on.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was teaching alongside him, I said, hey, in animation, there are a lot of people that kind of get chewed up and spit out of that industry because they realize they'll never own a house in the Bay Area or in LA or somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
And so they end up switching careers because they want to raise a family and have a house and have the American dream and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But the students, when they go there, no one tells them this. Should we tell them that?
Right.
And his response was, why would we do that? And my opinion of him went down a notch, because I'm like, they should be armed with that information.
You could ruin their life.
Yeah. So my honest answer to this is, it's tough, but it always has been. It's never been easy. 30 years ago, when I finished art school, notice I didn't say graduate because I never graduated, but I finished the BFA, and they told me that 5% of us, we'd be lucky if 5% of us made it. There were 20 kids in my class. I looked around. I'm like, that means one of us. There's no room for one. And 2 of us made it for a while. But
boom,
it's never been easy. Think about that: 20 kids in a class in college, and there's only room for one to make it as a freelance illustrator. It's always been that way. It's still that way, and there are still people who are making it today. And you guys have heard me if you listen to the podcast, you know that I feel like it's about making projects to not wait to get picked, but to pick yourself. I'm stealing those words from Seth Godin. And you have the tools and the technology to put your thing out into the world and test it in the marketplace, rather than waiting for someone else to say, yes, we pick you to work on this project. Mm-hmm. I think that there's tons of opportunity out there if you're willing to work really hard. And if you have a dream And if you work really hard on your craft, then yeah, I think there are people making it all the time. There are new people coming in. And so if you ask those guys and gals, they'll all say, yeah, it's great. Look at what I'm doing. But if you ask the 99 other people,
Yeah.
Right. Illustration's easy to one person.
Here's
there's
the
a lot of
reality. Here's the reality, though. It's not easy for anybody in their 20s right now, because the amount of money you need to be able to make just to pay rent is ridiculous. I was looking at, I have kids who are getting to that age where they should be moving out, but I can't supplement their income and help them pay rent, because for them to get their own place without, even with a couple of roommates, it's still going to be several hundred dollars a month, which is just hard. So we're in a weird economy right now, and I don't want to get like too deep into what's causing that, because I don't know all the reasons. And inflation is a problem, and there's all this instability and uncertainty. And you look at the amount of cost of living, how it's risen over the last 40 years, and how wages have kind of tapered or plateaued exactly across the board. So it's just hard for everybody right now. So that's the thing. And then you get into the world of creating art, where so many people are used to getting content for free. Like, how do you make a living off of that? And so I think, is it possible? Yes, you can have a career doing this. Are you going to have to be creative and look for ways to make a living that maybe maybe isn't what, non-traditionally what you think is a way to make a living? And I think about, like, for many years, me growing up, I would look at these newspaper cartoonists, right? And these guys would show up every day with a strip. It would be in 3,000 newspapers, each paper, paying a couple $100, per strip or whatever. I don't know if they're paying $50 or something like that per strip. And if you got into the newspapers, if you got syndicated, you essentially had a very stable, solid career until there were no more newspapers, right? And so in 2000, when newspapers were dying out and everybody was reading their news online, you could be asking the same question: is there a future for artists? Well, since then, people have had thriving careers in webcomics. Kickstarter has come along, which has completely changed the landscape for self-publishing. It used to be that there was DreamWorks and Disney. Now there's DreamWorks, Disney, Sony, Pixar. There's like all
Real
these.
effects.
Yeah, there's Illumination. There's all these different animation companies. And then there's even smaller animation companies that are like support for these bigger animation companies. There used to be a handful of video game studios. Now there's like 100 video game studios. So there's like a lot of opportunity, but then there is also a lot of competition. It used to be that learning how to do all this art was just to people who could afford to go to art school, or who knew a professional illustrator that was willing to like train them. Well, now you can go learn anything you want to learn on YouTube, on all these online schools that are offering, very precise curriculums to like teach you specific things. And so there's a lot of people who know how to do the craft now, who also want to get into doing illustration. So what I'm saying essentially is, it's hard. And if all of this sounds really daunting to you, and like this isn't a thing that you can do, then I would keep art as like a thing that's just for you, that is a hobby, that is like a side hustle sort of thing, where you aren't stressed out about making a living with art. So you can really enjoy the art and have it be like something fulfilling. And that might even be your ticket to success, because making a living off of it isn't like a burden that you have to take with you every time you make art. You could probably maybe make art that's more creative, that's more challenging, that's more experimental. That is something that people need to see and want to purchase, and it may lead to success, or it may not, and it may just lead to you having a lot of work-life balance and satisfaction. But then there's a few of you out there that are like, I don't care if it's hard, like I'm gonna go do this, I'm gonna figure this out, or hard or not, like this is the only thing I am capable of doing, so I got no other option than to do this. That's me, by the way. Like I am not good at doing anything other than what I'm doing here, like making art. And I guess I'm great at recording podcasts. Isn't this, I mean, look how awesome, look how awesome I'm doing here. No, I'm not even, I'm a semi capable podcaster, right? But essentially I'm good at making art. So that's like my only option, and I got to do it. I got to make it work. And so there's just people out there that don't care what the world is going to tell them, what they're going to, how much it's beating them down. They're still going to make art, and they're going to make some good art, and they're going to be successful. And so hopefully somewhere, whoever's listening to this, one of these people is you, and you can chart your course based on like that information.
You done with that?
Yeah. Next
Well,
one.
let me look. Do I get to comment? I'm like getting left out of the conversation.
Did you hear something, Will? Did you hear a voice? There's like weird static.
Here we go.
happening
Here we
over
go.
there.
Here we go. I agree with what they said.
How about this next question? You just answer first, Lee. Okay.
Well. Let me just put a little emphasis on that. What Will is saying what Will is saying is absolutely true. Combined with what Jake is saying, it can't be made too small of a point. Back in the day, it's just always been hard, and for different reasons. And so it's just important to think about that. It's not harder because AI is coming out or whatever. It's just there's going to be opportunity, and there's always going to be opportunity. And then every time there's more opportunity, there's more competition. And those two things go together. It's just a really important thing to think about. For example, I'm doing a bunch of art fairs next year, or I'm going to try to do some art fairs to get back into that market. I haven't done it since before COVID hit. So what we have available is there's a website called Zapplication. Almost any big art fair has their cattle call through that program. And so I've got access to all 50 states, exactly how many people are at each art fair, like, when it is, I could plan one for every month. I could pack them all into the summer in a certain geographical area. I mean, the amount of information is incredible. How would I have done that 20 years ago? You'd have to just be a part of it. You'd do one show and you'd ask somebody, hey, what's another show? Oh, here's one. And then you apply it. You know what I mean? So like there's less competition back then, but then there's less resources to find out what you're actually doing. So now everybody's entering these damn things. And then so you might not get in now because there's so many people entering, but the information is there. And so I just wanted to point out that those metrics go together. But it's important to think about scaling, like how you scale into something. We get a lot of emails that say, hey, I'm thinking about quitting my job and I'm gonna do this thing. And that's not how success works, at least in this industry, in my experience. I mean, look at Kelsey. What's her last name? The podcaster that Rodriguez. Yeah. I don't think she didn't start out having a bunch of money from YouTube. She started out making YouTube videos. She had to be doing something else to make money.
And working
really hard, like doing more than I'm doing for YouTube. Like I'm looking at her as my guide for it. And she's planning it out. She did more than the average person. She put out content that people liked, and she gradually has now made that her full-time job. But it wasn't like she could sit there at that moment. You think about before she made her first YouTube video, was she sitting there saying, should I quit my job and just do YouTube videos? I don't think it happened that way. It's a gradual build, and everybody can do that. If you want to do art shows, you enter one and see how it goes. And then, or if you want to make a comic, you'd make the first small comic. Like we say, scale into this stuff is the best way to do all of it, because then you get real-time feedback for how good you are, how much people want your project, all of it.
Let me go back into this one. I know we're spending a lot of time. This is a great question. If you took someone like a Sean Tan or a Tony DiDorlizzi or
Lee White,
or Lee White, or a Julia Sarda, or you take these illustrators who have really made it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you strip away their career in this alternate reality, and you let them start over from scratch, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have something to say. They have something that they really want to put out there in the world. They have this drive to make art and to make stories and to put it out there. I think they still make it again in this economy, just like they did before. I just don't think that you can hold people back that are driven and that are talented. And
Mm-hmm.
and I'm looking at those books on your shelf in the back, Lee,
Mhm.
and some of them are so unique. And like, not everyone is created equally. Like, I see what people are writing,
Mm-hmm.
and like sometimes when we critique stories, they're so predictable.
Yeah.
They're so like sometimes I'll see people's stories that they want to push to an editor, and I don't have the heart to tell them, in my opinion, this is they've seen like 100 stories that are this right here. You know what I mean? Like
It's
the
true.
monster under the bed story,
Yeah,
right?
that's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, like there are common tropes that get done over and over, and the publishers talk about it when we go to SCBWI. They're like, please don't send us another monster under the bed story. Well, a lot of people don't get that information, right? So they write a monster under the bed story, and they're like, okay, I've got my book dummy, and I've got this already. And it's like, what you haven't done is the research into the industry that you're trying to pry your way into, right? You're trying to open a seam and sneak in there and get in there and get some love from these publishers and stuff. And you're just not going to do it unless you have something really unique to say and to share, So there's that aspect as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Good point.
Cool. All right. Next question. I'll let you answer this first. How do you practice drawing machinery, engines, spaceships, and robots, etc.? Do you use reference material?
That's the one I'm going to answer.
Or is a book you recommend? Go for it, Lee.
When I draw machines, robots, and spaceships. Oh, no. I'm going to defer.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'll just answer this. I treat it the same way I treated like learning anatomy, human anatomy, and life drawing. So part of it is you draw from photos, actual machines. You'll draw motorcycles, you'll draw car engines, you'll draw construction equipment, anything that has like exposed machine parts that are mechanical and move. And then you'll also do like master studies. So other artists who've done really cool robots and machinery and stuff like that, you'll kind of do some master studies, see what they're getting. But I always come to it with proportion and like structure and character first. So big shapes, medium shapes, little shapes, and making sure they're all balanced and working that way. And then I sort of have this library of components that I can then place in there. So, and I'm also thinking like the 30-70 rule. So 70% of it is going to be like dead space or like soft space, and 30% of it's going to be like really busy detailed space, right? Or flip that, and so then I can go in, okay, this area is going to have a bunch of wires and joints and hydraulics and radiators and little alternators and things like that all connected in there, and they're going to need wires connecting them and whatnot. And that's how I approach it. So like if you could go to my Pinterest account and just look at my different boards that I have. If you need like a resource for robots, machinery, industrial design, and stuff like that, or you can go to my Flickr account where I have all my favorites, and there's a bunch of like work photos that I've saved there of cool stuff.
What's Flickr?
What's Flickr?
I'm kidding.
I know. Well, it's true. Flickr is a very popular photography website that's like pre-social media, and it rose in the early 2000s, and it sort of peaked in about the time the iPhone came out, and it's still around, it's still kicking, and I still use it to like look at interesting, cool photos that people post. But anyways, that's how you do it. It is you treat it like you would learning the anatomy. Like you know, remember learning like how the shoulder works and where the muscles attach and where the bones fit, and how difficult to understand that was, and how you had to like really look at like bone structure and muscle structure and different poses, and learn from a life, from a live model and stuff like that. It's the same thing for a motorcycle. If you want to draw a motorcycle, it's, well, how do these brake attachments work? Like, how does the handle lever like attach to the motorcycle, and where do the tubes and wires go, and where, how does the engine work, and all that stuff, right? Once you figure that out, once you understand like the basic mechanics of a motorcycle, and you go to draw a robot, you've got all the bits and pieces. You just put them in different order, different places, and put it, essentially draw a motorcycle in the shape of a human, and you've got a really cool looking robot that's creative and interesting, but also functional, right?
So there's a bunch of overlap once you understand the function, just like human anatomy. Once you understand one group of muscles, it kind of transfers to the other group of muscles.
Right.
So same thing with a machine.
It's the same thing like with animals too. Once you understand like how to draw a dog, the muscle, bone, leg, all that structure for a dog, it's not too hard to apply that to a horse or to a cat or to a mouse or something like that, or to like a dragon. You make something up. Next question. Do you guys listen to any art podcasts? Do you guys listen to any podcasts?
I don't. I listen to podcasts, but I don't listen to art podcasts.
Okay.
I wish I could say that I do, but I just don't. I mean, I listen to music when I go work out or I go running or something like that. And then other than that,
I listen to you guys and I'm done.
Yeah,
I don't even listen to our podcasts. No, the podcasts I listen to are, there's a podcast on screenwriting that I really like called Script Notes. There's a podcast called Jordan Harbinger. I don't listen to all of his episodes, but I really like his interviews with like interesting people. So like he just interviewed a guy about cocaine smuggling in Europe, and that was fascinating, right? Because now Europe's cocaine trade rivals the cocaine trade in North and South America, and they're starting to get all the problems that we have in North and South America with like crazy like narcos people who like will kill you if you upset them and stuff like that, and who are killing like reporters and things. And Europe's like, wait, what? we just want to have a party over here. So that was an interesting podcast. So I listen to those. I treat podcasts like expanding my understanding in areas that I don't have a full understanding of, right? So I can't recommend any particular art podcasts other than like the Draftsman is good when they post. And I would just go through and look at like the charts of art related podcasts and start clicking through and seeing which ones you like.
When I travel, I listen to things like NPR, like This American Life, and Life
I like This American Life. Yeah, that
stuff makes me more interested in art, strangely enough, than an art podcast, because art podcasts typically go down to technique. I mean, a lot of them will just end up, oh, here's how you do a Photoshop thing. Here's the brushes I use and that kind of stuff. And
they also interview artists too. Like a lot of these podcasts, it seems like lately the ones that I've listened to are like, here's a here's a problem in the art community, let's try and solve it, right? Or here's a career problem that you might be having, let's try to solve it. That's what we do here. But then there's also, I
think ours is interesting because the other ones devolve into, you guys listen to other podcasts and see if this is how it is. They interview somebody, that person does a series of rough sketches, and then they take it to final. I've heard that.
That's how they work.
So many different ways in an interview. It's so uninteresting because everybody's
right.
So, I mean, all three of us, we have different styles, but that's essentially how we work, and most everybody else too.
Yeah, rough it out and take it to final.
Right.
Yeah. And I think too, like with what we're doing, I don't know if you've noticed in the people that we're interviewing is we aren't interviewing seasoned professionals every time. Like we're very much wanting to get different people who are on every different like stretch of the path. Like here's someone, and also different people related to our careers. So we've interviewed editors, we've interviewed people who may not particularly be artists, but are tangential to or adjacent to art, right? And then people who, like one thing, I think Samantha Cotterill, right? She's not on social media. And so like that's interesting to us is how do you make a career without a social media presence? And like last couple of weeks ago, we did Benjamin Shipper, who just got his first book deal. Like we want to talk to people who are making this transition from, hey, I'm doing this part-time to trying to get to full-time. So you could see like, instead of someone who's 20 years ahead of you, who's maybe outdated, their like career advice for just starting out is 20 years behind. You could talk to someone who's 5 years ahead or 2 years ahead. And I think that's more helpful. Going back, like Kelsey Rodriguez too, like she had zero online presence essentially before 2019, 2020. And now she's legit YouTuber, right? Okay. Next question. How are you all today? I thought I was reading it too fast. I thought she was going to say, how tall are you all?
By the way, I have the one answer.
6'5".
I have the answer that you guys won't disagree with.
Okay, but really quick, I am curious. How tall are you, Will? 6'2"?
6'2".
6'2". I'm an even 6 foot. Lee, you're
5'7", so I'm short compared to these basketball player guys.
But I feel like you're the average human height.
No, I think I'm shorter.
Maybe a little bit shorter. That's true. When I did meet you in person for the first time, I thought, man, this is a little man. This is a very, very tiny man.
Bro.
And somewhat ineffectual.
It's like a hobbit.
Like this guy can't possibly throw the Frisbee all the way down to the basket.
Right. I was like, does he shop in the boys section at Target? What's going on here?
I'm actually 3 feet tall.
No. Okay, so here I'll read it. And Will's got an answer here, a real question from Louisa. Since you advised me about diversifying my income, I started to work on a children's book. I started out in the business as an art director, working in advertising agencies. Pretty quickly, I quit graphic design and focused only on illustration for advertising. Advertising is a passion, so I still have an art director living inside of me. I'm currently working on a picture book that speaks to me, that is really graphic, and some questions about the process started popping up in my head. And I think graphic, not as in like violence, but I think visually. It's a children's book, how to chop up your friends and or how to chop up your enemies and influence people. Okay, when you guys do a children's book, do you decide upfront a color palette for the book and stick to it in every spread, or does each illustration of the book have its own palette? Do you guys think of a book as one graphic piece, or each illustration should speak for itself for better understanding of the storytelling? Thank you again for all you do. Signed, Louisa. Okay, Will, go for it.
Okay, so in a picture book, you're supposed to you take the story and you're supposed to illustrate that story and do right by the story. And I think that almost every illustrator who has who's worked their skills to a certain point can look at that illustration and start to see pictures and can start to feel what it feels like. And in most children's books, they're like mini movies, right? In a movie, there's an art director, and there's almost all the best movies. There's a color palette that is a theme that runs through the whole thing. There's exceptions to that, but most of the time, I think you should definitely have a palette that feels right for that book. The exceptions to me would be if in the story you're visiting very different places, very different environments, to where you can't possibly have the same palette, or there's parts of the story that are really calm versus parts of the story that are really exciting, right? So like if you think of, for instance, the movie Nightmare Before Christmas, right? Like there's a color palette going through Christmastown, right? That's just really vibrant and happy colors and everything like that. When Santa goes down to Oogie Boogie, all of a sudden they've got that black light feel, right? Everything feels totally different when you get down there in that different location. The colors are neon and black and dark and scary. And then you come back up to Christmastown again. So that would be my answer is, it depends on the story, but most of the time it's one palette that kind of is a theme for the whole book.
Yeah, I like that.
So if you start thinking in terms of color palette, you make your life a lot easier. I mean, even look at it like you're bringing up animated films. They do what's called a color script, and they figure out kind of the color story of what happens. And even when the colors do start to vary, like Will's example of Nightmare Before Christmas, there's still a cohesiveness in how those things develop. They're not just like, oh, this whole palette's over here is going to be this and this one's going to be different. They do need to tie together, even when the colors themselves are different. So,
yeah,
if you do each spread as a fresh start, you're making your life very difficult.
Mm-hmm. One thing that's really cool is go get the art of. There's a Pixar art of like the story coloring. I forget the actual name of it. What is it? I have it over there. I can't remember the name, but it's a book with all the color scripts for each one of their films.
Or just
and
Google color script. You can see.
Yeah, just Google. That's another good thing. And essentially, what it is, it's a like you have a script for the story. You have a color thing for the film. And so, for example, in Finding Nemo, each scene is going to be a little bit different than the other scene, just like what Will is saying with what was it called? Nightmare Before Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But that's a really good example of seeing what you could do, how you could apply that to children's books in storytelling. It's just a good thing to look at. Diana has a long question at the end. She says, "Thank you for taking time to listen. Brevity is not my strength." So I'm going to summarize what she said. Essentially, she's been doing a lot of getting her own work illustrating for self-publishing projects. She's done 7 books, working on her 8th, and she's raising her rates, but she's getting to that edge of what a self-publisher can pay an illustrator. So she's wondering, does it make sense to bring an agent into her, to hire an agent to like help her, A, to negotiate, B, to like get her better work, and C, to, well, I think it's just those 2 things: negotiate things, get her better work. Her question though is like, most agents will take a cut of everything regardless. She's getting a lot of these clients on her own, and she doesn't want to essentially like have an agent take a cut of something that they didn't do. Here's the thing though, just to go to that point is, if an agent, even if you bring a client and your agent does the negotiation, that still is like saving you work, like to get you a contract, to make sure you're being taken care of, and to weed through and say, this isn't worth your time. You could do better if, essentially act as somewhat of like a manager and say, you're better off spending more time on this project because you're going to get, this is going to advance your career better than taking on this job. So sometimes that's good to have, good reason to have an agent. However, I think in Diana's case, looking at, were you guys able to read that whole thing? She is in a situation where if she's liking the self-publishing scene and wants to keep working on that, especially with how much she has on her plate in her life. She says she's got 2 young kids. She's got homeschool. She's got a lot on her plate, family life stuff, right? You get an agent, and now maybe they're getting you more work than you're able to handle. So the question is, do you get an agent in this situation, or do you just keep working at the pace and at the level that
I mean, we don't have the privilege of seeing the numbers. So it's kind of like giving advice without kind of in the blind a little bit. But
Yeah.
I don't think that the agent's going to be able to squeeze that much more blood out of the turnip
Mhm.
to make it worth it. Like if you're already bumping up against what you can negotiate, and then you pay an agent to negotiate higher, they're
Mhm.
going to have to go so much higher to make it worth it that
They're going to take like
I-
30%. I mean,
I think it would be worth it because like, I don't know, maybe the other answer is to get better at negotiating. I'm not saying she's not good. Maybe she's really good at negotiating. We just don't know. We don't see the numbers, but it seems to me like if your theory is that the client could pay more, but you're not good enough at negotiating at it, then to me the simple solution is get better at negotiating.
I will say this: you could for signing with an agent, if you did do it, you can be honest about how much work you want, so they're not just have a different expectation than you do. And then what I've done in the past, and it depends on where you are in your career if you could do this, but with the clients I had previously worked with and have a working relationship with, I negotiated a different percentage that the agent would get if we land a job with them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That worked pretty well.
Yeah.
They're going to resist that, by the way, in the beginning. But you say, why should I pay you? I've already done the contact work is the hard stuff, getting them interested and all that stuff. The negotiation stuff does have a value, like Will said, but it's not 30%.
Right. I think the only other reason, like there's two different career trajectories here, and an agent is going to want to get you more like established in traditional publishing because that's their world, right? Which you can make more money over there than you can if you're just doing one-off jobs for self-publishers. If you're self-publishing your own book, that's another way that you can generate good income if you're, if you have a fan base and if these books sell well. But if you're wanting to go into more traditional publishing and work at, work with Penguin Random House or Scholastic or something like that, then an agent's definitely going to be like, they only work through agents.
That's a good point. They're not going to want to work with self-published people.
Right.
It's too much work for them to try to educate the self-published
They just
author.
don't.
And a gamble, too, of whether you're going to deliver. I mean, you might not
they just
deliver,
don't have
that's a
don't have time.
nightmare.
So that would be a reason, if you're like, well, in the future, I'd really like to get a firm foothold in that world, definitely get an agent. It's gonna help you there. But if you're just wanting to like stay in this self-publishing world that you're in, pass on it. I think you just work on your personal projects, get those going, and make sure you have time for that, because I think that will help you. The other thing too is if you're really good at landing and you've got all these landing jobs and have all these contacts, maybe you become somewhat of an agent yourself and find a roster of illustrators that can do this stuff and just say, I'll take a $100 finder fee here and there or something like that.
That is a very unique bit of advice. Be careful there. I like it. I've always thought about that because you get to know how the whole thing works. You're like, I could do this for everybody. But I can assure you that's what my agent did. He came from the illustration world, had published 60 books or something, and then he's now an agent for the first time. This is his first year, and it's not easy. So be careful.
No. All right. A couple more questions here, then we'll wrap it up. Before we move forward anymore, I just wanted to say I've been a little hard on Lee this episode, and I really do value you, and I think you're awesome. So I got to build you up there a little bit too.
Do you think you've been hard on me? I didn't think that, but if you do,
I know there's somebody listening who's like,
your
does
apology.
Jake have a
that's what it is. Okay, you're not really feeling it. You're like, I don't want people to beat me up online. You guys, Jake is being so mean to me. Let him know about it in the comments, please. He's picking on me for being a hobbit.
I do recall you have very good looking feet. They're not hairy. So
well, you did win the feats of strength, the SVS feats of strength.
That's true.
So.
Well, that's a Napoleon complex. I'm shorter, and so I did try to tell my son that because we didn't know if my son was going to be short or tall. It turns out he's probably going to be a taller kid, strangely enough. But we told him, he's like, Dad, we're trying to tell him, like, no matter how you end up, you're going to be okay. You know what I mean? And I was like, I'm shorter than the average guy, but I also win everything I do.
It's true.
I mean, I do. That's my constant thing. And so maybe it is Napoleon complex or whatever, but I tend to win a lot.
A lot. Because you're pretty good at
I'm hyper aggressive.
Whatever you touch, you better watch out because you're going to get it. Just a, I guess, little follow up here with Kirsten. She said a month ago we mentioned a lettering class coming to SVS. Do you guys know? Do you know when that's going to happen?
I do. Not going to tell you though.
You got an update for us?
I do. Yeah. We're in the middle of filming, just locking down what all the chapters are and everything like that. I'm spearheading that with Dave Zalay, who's worked he owned his own graphic design company for 20 years and then became an illustrator. So he has a very, very specific knowledge base there. He's really good with type. And he is doing books. It's not just like some random graphic designer too. So he knows how they apply to books. And so we came up with a curriculum. It's going to be probably a 1.5 to 2 hour class. And we're filming now. So it depends on just, what his summer schedule is and when that's going to come out, but it is underway and happening.
Cool. I didn't even know about that. That's awesome. All right. Last question.
What you find out when you're in the podcast.
I know.
There's a whole other side of our business that's happening. Not even aware of.
Last question from Sarah. Hey guys, I'm working on my second picture book and I'm looking into printing options. I'm partnering with someone else who'll be doing most of the marketing. And right now we're primarily looking at Print Ninja. Is this a fine way to go or do you have any better suggestions? Price-wise, doing the price calculator, it actually seemed close to what Will listed in his Pickleball Paul videos. If you're curious to see what this is looking like, here's a link to some of the spreads as they are right now. Do you guys know, have you worked with Print Ninja ever?
I have worked with them quite a bit on quoting. I didn't actually end up using them, but I have quoted them on a lot of projects. And my understanding of them is if your option is printing in the United States, for using Print Ninja will save you a ton of money. They're a great company. The quality is very good. A lot of artists use them. So I give them the thumbs up there. If you want to do this more, self-publishing, and multiple projects, bigger books like Will's art school book, you're going to need to probably go through a broker like Will does, a print broker, or work with China directly, which is what I did for my tarot deck, which will be probably 25% less than Print Ninja. So Print Ninja is a great deal. If you the beauty of Print Ninja is they work with printers in China, so they keep the cost down, but they're a United States sort of liaison where you're not having to try to figure out different tariffs and how it's going to come over on the boat and all that stuff. If you've never done that before, it's very complicated and can get away from you pretty quick. It's confusing. Like when I was first working with China on my first book directly, I didn't understand half of how it all worked, and Print Ninja will take out that pain point for you, but you're going to pay about, like I said, 20-25% more than dealing directly with China, but they are one of the best. If you're just looking for straight up printers, within the United States, they're going to be great.
I was looking at, one thing to note is right now, everything just costs more because of the paper shortage caused by COVID. So there was a huge spike in 21 and it's doubled in price and then it doubled again, or it did another spike in 2022. And then I think from what I'm reading is paper is leveling off now. So it should stay at 2022 levels in 2023. And I think this is just the reality now, is paper will never go back down to costing what it cost before. So it used to be that you could get 2,000 books for $3 a piece in China, and now it's probably $6 a piece. I don't know. How much were your books?
Getting them for $3.
Okay, so many pages though.
Mine was around $3.
So 32.
Yeah. So my books are like over 100 pages. Usually.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. No, what they don't teach in art school books, which is 200 pages, Print Ninja was charging double. Double. Right. So I saved half by going through a broker.
Maybe the bigger the book is.
If you so I have a print broker that's stateside here, and she works directly with a printer who doesn't speak a lot of English, and somehow they communicate, and she's done a lot of books with them, and so she's my liaison to China. I know that a lot of people have a lot of mixed feelings about working with China. I understand that. When I will say this, I have nothing with buying American, but when you're an entrepreneur
Can't afford
and
it.
you're trying to, come up with money out of your own pocket, and your bill at the end of the day is going to either be $10,000 or $20,000,
Mhm.
and you have to sell enough books to get back to zero at $20,000 or zero at $10,000. It's really hard to choose to keep it domestic over here. Not making a judgment on anybody who wants to just print here domestically. My choice has been to go to China for financial reasons. But I would say that if this print broker here that I have, she will let me give out her name, but she wants me to vet people first, because I did once on my YouTube channel, and she had like 10 different people contact her for quotes, and she spent like 2 or 3 days running down quotes and working with this guy in China, and none of the people that she gave quotes to pulled the trigger, and so she basically lost like 3 days of her life.
Oh, that sucks.
And so she said, "Hey, Will, don't just put my name and number out there for people. Like, find out if they've got money, their book is done, they're ready to pull the trigger. They're gonna go with Print Ninja or someone else, and they're ready to just put their money down. That's who I want to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
But not if they're contemplating whether to even do the book,
Mm-hmm.
Because it just cost me too much."
Yeah.
I actually think that's how Print Ninja protects themselves, because they probably give out a ton of quotes that don't go through, but hey, they charge enough
Yeah.
that they pay for it.
Yeah.
I think she's trying to pass on those savings. So anyway, contact me if you're serious and tell me why. I've had a bunch of people email me and say, "Will, this is my deal. My book is ready. It's been graphically designed. The files are ready. Here they are.
Mm-hmm.
I have money. I'm ready to buy. I'm ready to do it." And then I send it to her, and she's now worked with some of those people.
Right. I also don't pass judgment on anybody who prints in China, but lately I've been printing strictly in the US because I want to give jobs to my community. So I found a printer here in Phoenix, and they're local, and I do not mind putting in extra money into that job because I know it's helping paying these guys' mortgages and whatnot, right? B, they are environmentally like sound because they recycle whatever excess stuff. They don't just dump their spoiled ink in a river or whatever. I have no idea if China does that or not, but there's no way for me to find out what they do.
You think you're better than me, don't you?
I don't. I'm just telling you, these are my personal reasons.
You tell Allison, "I can't believe Will."
I'm not passing judgment. I'm just telling you my reasons. And C, I also know that the people working at this printer that I work with, they're called O'Neill. I just know that they're being paid a fair wage, and they're being treated right. I don't know who's working at the print shops that I've worked with in China in the past. That's to say I won't ever not print in China again. It's just that with this last book that I did and several other books that I printed up in Utah as well, I really like paying a little bit extra, getting my books in 2 weeks instead of 2.5 months, and knowing that like really having a hand in the printing process and working with people who I've made actual relationships with. So
one thing that you can do
where I'm
to
at.
really lower the cost of everything is I started my own sweatshop in my basement. Is that wrong to say? And then I dump all the stuff in the sewer. So
That's amazing. How much to get a book printed with you, Lee?
it cost me a quarter. I'll charge you $10.
Yeah, of course. Did you see? I saw this. So the
No, it's not funny. What I'm saying is not funny, by the way. Don't, if Daniel keeps that in, I'm kidding. Of course. Do not
I know.
email me.
The Onion, I was watching a 15-year-old Onion YouTube video or 10-year-old Onion YouTube video, Onion News Network.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this report that the Gap is doing a new thing made by kids for kids for all the kids Gap stuff. And it's like, the kids are like, we love it because it's like having your pen pal across the country. They'll like sew in little notes into it, like, will you be my friend? And they show a picture up close. It's like, help me, get me out of here. Anyway, and they're like, funny. we asked to go in and film the factories, but they said this is a kids zone only, no adults allowed. That's horrible.
Guys, I was totally kidding. Do not email me.
Yeah, the Onion is really, honestly, it's really good about reporting truth, even though it's satire. Sometimes the satire is more true than
it's true
than the true stuff. All right, let's wrap it up, guys. We recorded an episode. I think we're done.
We did it.
Yay,
you guys made it to the end. If you're watching this episode on YouTube, put a little high five emoji in the comments section to show that you made it to this point in the podcast. That you
Should
are
it be
true.
more specific though? Because what if somebody just does that luckily by accident? Let's
put two high five.
Let's use a better emoji.
Emojis.
What's a better emoji? Later, I'm gonna go in and look. Let's find.
Now we're sitting. Listen, if you
no, the tooth. Let's do the tooth. Just
tooth emoji. There's going to be comments where there's one high five emoji, then there's a couple where there's two high five emojis, and then there's going to be one where it's a tooth. One person who actually listened to the end. Okay, put the tooth emoji. All right, I'm going to take us out. Everybody, thank you for joining us. 3-Point Perspective is made possible by SVSLearn.com, where becoming a great illustrator starts. Your hosts are Will Terry, Lee White, and Jake Parker. I want you to go to Will Terry Art, at Will Terry Art on Instagram, to see all of Will's reels that he's been posting. I want you to go to at Lee White Illo to see the stuff he's been posting lately over on Instagram. And I want you to go to at Jake Parker to see what I'm doing. By the way, we didn't even bring up Threads, the new Twitter competitor.
I haven't even checked it out yet, to be honest. So,
well, I already got 24,000 followers on it. Anyways, moving on. Podcast produced by Daniel 2. That's danieltu.co. Daniel2.co. Go check out his website and see what he's doing. Special thanks to our Shownotes wrangler, Lily Howell, our Chief Operations Officer, Lisa Fott. Now, go draw something. I want to share a story with you guys. This is, see if you can explain this to me. A couple years ago, I bought a Leatherman, like a nice $60 Leatherman tool. Maybe it was 80. I don't know. It was nice. And I kept it on my pocket for like a full year. I carried it wherever I went. And I was like, I'm going to be that guy, because my grandpa always had a knife on him. And it was just always so handy. And I thought I just want to have this tool because I don't want to be like searching for it. And so anytime I needed to cut something open, boom, right there. I didn't have to go hunting through the house for it, right? And I loved it. And when I didn't have it on me, I kept it in my closet on the top shelf where I keep all my shoes, right? And I would just put it there. And one day I went to go put it in my pocket and it wasn't there. And I was like, oh, did I put it in another place? So I checked the place where I keep keys. I checked the place where I keep my wallet. All these little places where I put everything, never found it. And so like 6 months go by and I'm like, if it's like my one character flaw, one of many character flaws, but one of my main ones is I always think that somebody, like if I misplace something, absolutely think somebody stole it. Okay.
You're one of those people.
I'm one of those people.
Oh.
That's what
Okay.
my second Pickleball Paul book is about.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
That's why I was like, oh, this is so relatable. So I'm thinking, no, Jake, nobody stole your Leatherman. It's in the house somewhere. It'll show up. And for a year went by where it never showed up and never turned up. I took apart my closet to see if it fell down somewhere. Never found it. And I couldn't find this thing anywhere. Then one day I am in the boys' bathroom, right? And I get done using the bathroom and I look over, and on the shelf is a Leatherman, but it's not my Leatherman. It's some random Leatherman tool that I'd never seen before.
Oh, wait.
Okay. So I've been using that one now. And I asked my boys, I'm like, did you guys get a Leatherman that I know about? And Miles was like, no, I don't know whose that is. Nobody in the house could tell me whose that Leatherman was. It's not mine. It's completely different. It has like a black finish on it. Mine had like a raw metal finish on it. So can you guys explain what exactly happened there? I have a theory.
Do you sleepwalk?
No, I don't sleepwalk.
Okay. How do you know?
What's your theory?
My theory is the air conditioning repair guy stole my Leatherman
Oh.
and dropped his there and got him mixed up or something like that.
Which one is better?
Sleepwalking or no?
Which Leatherman?
Oh,
is
which
better?
Leatherman is? I thought you meant which idea. The one I originally bought, I love. This new one isn't a Leatherman tool. It's like a knockoff, and it's got
Say no more, because I've got a Leatherman Wave.
Well, let me ask you this.
And it's precision.
Let me
Yeah.
ask you this. How many times when you have the feeling that somebody stole it, how many times is it accurate?
It's not.
1 out of 100.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's true.
There you go. Learned
But
a lot
I have a
about
really
yourself.
quick. Let me tell you a really quick story
Yeah.
on that. Okay, names are being changed to protect. I'll tell you that someone that's really close to me, a family member, had been stealing stuff for legit stealing stuff. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so they got known and had a reputation. They were a kid, and then another person came to someone's house, and the kid was there, and this other guy brought his girlfriend over.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden her wallet went missing.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone thought that everyone knew the kid took it.
Mm-hmm.
The kid had a reputation. Stuff was always going missing, money, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So everyone just knew that this other kid took it. And there was feelings over it and words, and the guy that came over was really pissed off because it was his girlfriend, and they ended up breaking up over it because he had given her she had given him her wallet
Mm-hmm.
to protect, because he told her, hey, there's like a thief in this house.
Mm-hmm.
So she gave it to him. He hid it. He forgot where he hid it.
Oh no.
He was sure
Nice.
that he put it somewhere else, and then anyway it turned up like 2 months later. I told the kid, I said, now that you've been vindicated on this one, like everyone knew that you did it. They knew it. I knew it. I knew you did it.
Right.
And we were all wrong.
Uh-huh.
Now's the time to never ever let this ever happen again, because now you can
Right.
build
You've
on
got it. Right.
you
Yeah.
can build your reputation on this now.
Love it.
I have a story. This reminded me of a story. So my wife's uncle has Down syndrome, and one of his quirks is stealing stuff. Okay. So, and one of his favorite things is he'll come over and visit, and he'll steal the TV remotes and take them with him when he leaves, which is like
Wait, intentionally, or is it just kind of an
intentionally.
accident?
Yes. No,
Wow,
he loves
that's-
it. He
that's
loves
super specific.
tricking people, right? And we're always like, Frank, you have to like pat him down before he leaves to make sure he doesn't have the TV remotes and stuff like that. And he works at so in the small town that they work at, that they live in, he works for like a thrift store. Like they give all the special needs people in the town a job at the thrift store, and it's like just the level that they can work at, right? And they have some supervision and it gives them something to do during the day, right?
Mhm.
And the only problem is every once in a while, like he likes to like steal stuff, right? And so this one day, a woman comes in, she's buying something, she leaves her purse on the counter. He reaches in and grabs her wallet thing, her little purse thing with the money, and tucks it into his pocket. And he works the rest of the day. And she comes back in and she's like, I think I left a wallet in here or something. And she's, nervous, and she's like freaking out a little bit. And they're like, what? I believe it was stolen. Can I just get it back really quick? And they're like, well, we don't see it anywhere. We don't see it. Turns out he takes it home that night, and pretty soon, like, the police are getting involved. Like, the police, she wanted to just be like, okay, fine, I'll go look for it somewhere else. But now the police are involved. The police go, they come to his house or his little apartment. They find the wallet, and it turns out it was a wallet she had stolen.
No.
And so she got busted because he
No.
stole a wallet she had stolen. So
So did he get busted too then? He got in trouble too?
Well, he was always getting in trouble for stuff like that. But yes, he did get busted, and he's like, you can't do that anymore. And they just have to watch him closely.
Wow.
Because he knows, like, stealing remotes is one thing. Stealing people's wallets, like, he was told, you can't do that. Like,
that's amazing. That's an amazing way of getting caught. Like,
yeah,
you got away with it. That's crazy.
I know.
Can I tell a theft story now?
Yeah, please.
I'll have one.
This is 3-point perspective. We've had 2 points of perspective on theft. Now we need a third.
My third theft. So we got invited to go to a cabin one time in the mountains just outside of Portland, Mount Hood, and snow cabin. Awesome weekend. Know these people for a while. One of the it's a couple. The guy had actually lived with us for a while when he was in between places. So somebody I knew really well invited Lisa and I and Emerson to come up for the weekend. So we go up for the weekend, and we get there, and the cabin is heated by a stove, and the stove or a fireplace, and the fireplace isn't on yet, and so it's freezing. It's snow outside, freezing when we get up there. So we start to build a fire, but the house is still cold. So we just grab. It's a family cabin, so there's some coats and sweaters and all that kind of stuff. So we put that stuff on, and house warms up. Everybody's like, you don't need the coats anymore or whatever, but weekend starts to play on, and my friend would keep dropping these weird, he'd like do these non sequiturs. Like while we're at dinner, he's like, they installed, I was really worried about theft. So they installed cameras inside here. And so a lot of owners are installing cameras, and we're just eating dinner. And I'm like, oh, that's cool, I guess. I mean, it's an odd thing to just pull out of the air, but so only in hindsight, looking back, do I understand all these little comments. It was a Patagonia jacket that I had, or a Patagonia sweater that I had on.
Uh-huh.
And so Sunday comes around, we're time to leave, and we cleaning up, packing up, cleaning everything. Like, all right, we're all packed, gotta go. And he pulls me aside. He's like, hey man, you gotta give that jacket back. I didn't even know what he's talking about. I was just like, what are you referring to? He had to say like, oh, the Patagonia jacket from the first night. I still didn't even really know what he was talking about. I had it on for all of 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And of course I didn't have it, but I was like, the false accusation. Then I looked back on the weekend, and probably 20 times, like that other couple was just discussing how I'm stealing this jacket and how to stop me from stealing the jacket. Totally ruined our friendship. Never talked to him again.
Oh no!
After that, it was a huge blow up.
So psycho.
Yeah,
so did they? Why did they think you did it?
It was just down in our room. Like I had worn it downstairs and taken it off. Didn't give it another thought. And then the whole time they thought I was trying to sneak out. I mean, who thinks that?
Oh, they thought you were trying to sneak out with it.
Yeah, they thought I was trying to sneak out with it. So they're trying to do little hints like, hey, you might be on camera. Hey, you know.
Those people are weird. Like, why?
But it ruined our relationship. It was really, really bizarre.
What'd you say to them?
I mean, I told him, I was like, I don't have the jacket. I don't even know what he was talking about. But then I went down and, I'm searching the room for it because obviously they're worried about it missing. And so I found the jacket in our room, and I realized that me coming out with the jacket made it look like I had the jacket.
So they placed it in your room?
No. I probably took it off in the room and I think it was hanging in the bathroom, which is why I didn't see it.
Why would you do that? Like, why would you not give Lee White the benefit of the doubt? Like,
he sure didn't. He did not give me, it was just full on accusation. I would have just said, hey, have you seen that Patagonia jacket? I'm trying to put everything back, and then see what the answer is. I'd say, oh, I think it's in our room somewhere. But anyway, so it's just kind of weird, when people assume that somebody stole something. It's a big accusation. So you got to be careful with it because it ruined our friendship. Like, I never talked to him again. It was a huge blow up. And then it was nothing. Like, I haven't talked to him in
how'd you meet this guy?
He was a boyfriend of somebody I worked at a studio with. In Portland. And so he was super cool, but obviously not that
Tell
cool.
that. That's wild. All right, let's start this thing, shall we?
Let's do it.